Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 9 of the Card Fellas Show. I'm Matt. Chris, how you doing tonight?
Always living the dream, buddy.
Indeed, indeed. And what do you always say? I can't believe my life turned out this way.
Yeah, every day I wake up and can't believe this is how my life turned out.
I'm going to take that as a positive because we're trying to be more positive. We're trying to be more positive, but let's try and do that. And we need a little bit of positivity in the world today, and we're going to start with it today and do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, we should start with positivity, but instead we're going to start with your SGC reveal.
Yeah, we want to start with that. Yeah, so we got a little bit of buzz on the old YouTube channel. The viewership spiked yesterday after I posted a video that I called "What the hell was I thinking?" And we started to get a lot of comments, a lot of views, a lot of new subscribers. So apparently, if you want to get more subscribers to your YouTube channel, put that in the title. Like, what the hell am I thinking? So let me just take you back here. So now the reason for the buzz was I had a 15 card sub reveal, and it wasn't PSA, it wasn't Beckett, it was SGC. And so here's the story behind it. And this is the way it goes. So Chris and I have talked about this before, but I have stacks of cards. We both have stacks of cards that we think could potentially be graded. And there was a point in time, not terribly long ago, where we were sending those cards in by the hundreds, by the dozens at least. And we were getting these cards graded for, I mean, we talk about it all the time on the show, $8.88 for 80s baseball. That was a PSA special. And then it was $9 a card if you submitted over 50 or 100 or whatever the case may be. And then it went up to 10 and then 15, 12, and then 20. And then all of a sudden they shut it down. So we kept getting those stacks of cards ready to go. Anyway, long story short, PSA now is grading cards at $50 a clip. So some of those cards that we were getting graded, absolutely you don't get those graded now. So I still have those stacks that I want to get graded, and I'm a grading junkie. I love that. I've said this on the show before. I love my cards getting graded. So I had 15 cards, and I'm like, I'm not going to spend $50 on them. I'm going to go send them to SGC. Now, 2 of the cards in there were sent back to me from PSA. They wouldn't grade them. So let's eliminate those 2. Let's say there's 13 cards. So here's the story behind the what the hell was I thinking? So I get the grades back in email form. So when you see the list of cards and then the grades next to them, I'm thinking to myself, what did I do? What the hell was I thinking? So as I started to rip those cards open, rip the box and unveil the cards, I started to remind myself, okay, now I know what I'm doing. So I really started to look at these cards. So here's the cards. I have 7 of them. I think I have like buyer's remorse here. The rest of them right here, I'm pleased with. So a lot of emotions in that one video, a lot of ups and downs. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with it. But we got some really good comments. So one guy wrote, like, WTF, what did I just watch? So I was like, that was great. Another guy was like, hey, amazing the junk people are grading these days. And you're right. There are people who are still sending things in that are maybe not worth being sent in. And then he quotes, but I want it in a slab. Lots of lipstick on pigs here. And then another guy, SGC is gaining steam. We'll eventually close the gap on the resale value of PSA and, Beckett. So some varying comments, but most people were like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? Because there's some cards in here where I'm trying to think maybe like this card right here, this Skybox Jordan Pippen that came back like a 9. I'm not going to get my money back for what I paid to get it graded. These Colby cards right here, 9.5, they're not going to get their money back. So, it's one of those things where you looked at it and you went, okay, but I really like this card. Magic Johnson rookie came back a 7, like that in the slab. This was Kobe Bryant card right here, that Panini. So, bottom line here is this, Chris. I love getting cards graded, and if I'm not sending cards in to get graded, I kind of need something. I need to do something. And so that's what this was all about. at the end of the day, maybe I lose $50, $75 in the whole order if I resell these. Who cares? We blow money on that, on stupider things. And I watch a lot of people buy hobby boxes for $300-$400 and they get $25 back in return. So to me, that's crazy. So this isn't as crazy as much. So a lot of emotions in that video. So if you watch our YouTube channel, you can go watch that one. And we'd love to hear your comments on that. And I do love some of the cards that came out of here. To be honest with you, when you see it on paper, here's one of the that USA Olympic team. It came back a 9. But I love that card. And I do love the tux. I do love the black. I do love the, I love the look of it. Here's a Michael Jordan card. This is about $160, $150 PSA 10. So I'll make money there. Here's one card that, you look at and go, this was a $1 card. Why are you getting this graded? Well, it's Juan Soto, Future Stars, Topps Chrome. I like it. Okay. Could I have waited? Maybe. Here's one of my favorites. Look at that one. Walter Payton. Look at that stare by Payton, 8.5. I'm a Payton guy. So I don't know. I'm just, I'm looking at it and I say, I don't have as many regrets the next day, the day after, because I have other regrets too. Remember Jared Stidham? I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I got his card graded. It's a 10 in SGC. I didn't pay $30 though. I thought he was the next man up in New England. And here's one too. How about a PSA or an SGC4 Randy Johnson? I didn't look closely enough. There's a big crease right here. I have regrets in life. These are not those. So, but let me ask you this, Chris, serious question. And you have a more leveled approach about grading. What are you doing with cards that maybe you thought you would get graded at one point and now you're looking at the cost of them? What are you doing with those cards, and what are you thinking for the near term and long term with those cards?
Yeah, so I have a like a shelving unit in my office that has, I've got boxes full of wax, I've got boxes full of just cards that have been sleeved, but I have another box that says to be graded. And basically, they all go into that box. Anything that I think has the value and has the opportunity to be a 10. And some cards, if it's more valuable, if I feel like it has an opportunity to be a 9. And those are just sitting there. And to be honest with you, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, a lot of the cards that I graded over the last 2 years sat in a box in plastic for 30 years before that too. So yes. If it has to sit there for another 20 years, it's not going to bother me. And honestly, I know you enjoy grading, and that's fine. And people who enjoy that, go do it. I mean, I remember, I went to college in Las Vegas, and I remember walking around the casino as a 21-year-old dude, watching these people that were my age playing blackjack for like $50 a hand, going, how are these people doing this? Like, I didn't have that kind of money. And it just blew my mind. Well, everybody kind of has their own thing that they like to do. So if that's what you like to do, cool. Do it. Do what you enjoy. And if it's something that you can afford, then cool. But I like raw cards. I like looking at them. I like dealing with them. And, I've actually, instead of grading a ton of cards lately, I've just been going through my collection and just kind of collating it and putting stuff together by player and just kind of enjoying the collection. And with the prices of wax and everything else right now, I'm enjoying that part of the hobby right now. And it really costs no money, which I think is pretty cool. And I think that, you see a lot of people on YouTube and on Facebook, complaining about the prices of things and complaining about not being able to find what they want. It's like, yeah, it's fun to go and open packs and do that stuff, but there's a lot of enjoyment in the hobby that you can find without actually spending any money at all. So I would say do that. If right now your budget or you can't find the things you want to find, use this time as a time to go through and make your collection what you want it to look like.
I think that's a big part right there. And that was what reminded me of why I did this when I was going through these cards. In the slabs, I was like, okay, now I remember why I did this. Like this Magic Johnson card right here, like this is wherever the card was. I have 2 Magic Johnson cards. Here's one right here. Like SGC. I just love that card. I love Magic Johnson. He was from my era. And so when I started Walter Payton, I did not get these graded to flip to make money. And that was one of the things that I had to remind myself once I opened it. Again, when you look something on paper and you look at the grades and go, boy, these grades stink. These cards are not going to be worth much. I'm like, okay, maybe I could have spent. Here's the one thing that I thought of, and I could have probably bought this card in a PSA 9 for cheaper than I got it graded. And that's the stuff that I don't think about because I like getting the cards graded so much. And so those are some of the things that you kind of think about and you go through your head and you go, boy, I could have done this a little bit cheaper and achieved something the same way. And that's just one of the things, way to think about it.
Yeah, there's definitely still a premium on PSA 10 cards, but I mean, if you like stuff and you like that card and you want it slabbed, right now you can buy PSA 9 of just about everything out there for less than what it costs for you to send something to PSA. And I'm actually super bullish on Luis Robert this year. I think he's going to be like the Vlad Guerrero of last year, a guy that, had some injuries and kind of struggled. But actually, if you go back and really look at those numbers, he actually had a much better year than I think people think. And I'm buying like PSA 9 Luis Robert cards for like $12 right now.
Yeah, you should show that card that you got eventually on one of these shows. It's just a sharp looking card.
Right.
I agree. And you've been on him.
Yeah, I've been shopping for him. I think he's going to have a big year this year. And like I said, right now you can get his stuff. I mean, you can buy PSA 10 stuff for like $30 right now.
Right.
So I think that's a guy to go after. But, if you've got cards like what you showed, that Walter Payton card, you can buy those in 9s pretty, less money than it costs to grade it right now.
100%.
So
and that's the learning. Yeah, that's the learning curve, honestly, sometimes I move so fast. And, we used to have a mantra on the show of like, be patient, be willing to grind, and just kind of grind things out. It's just, I was undisciplined for about 15 cards here, 13 cards. So it happens, you get caught up in all that stuff. So we appreciate all the comments that came in on our YouTube channel. If you're listening to this on our podcast, go visit the Card Fellas YouTube channel. We have a lot of great content on there. We do quick rips that we call them, where we'll just unveil some, either hanger boxes, blaster boxes, mega boxes. We'll do our reveals there from PSA, SGC. So we're trying to get all over the place, and we enjoy this hobby so much that we want people to engage with us. So we appreciate it, and maybe we'll just start labeling everything. What the hell was I thinking? Maybe we just rebrand the podcast that. What the hell was I thinking? Because it sure got a lot of attention, and we truly appreciate that. And we try and respond to all comments.
Yeah, there's one thing that. One thing you can be assured of online is if you fail, there'll be someone there to kick you when you're down.
So. Yeah. Speaking of which, that's what I've noticed about LeBron James, and I know coming up here in a future podcast, we're going to talk about LeBron James and his cards. But man, is he getting kicked right now? And his team is down and out, and it seems to be all his fault. So, quick plug for a future podcast for sure.
Yeah, stick around for that. But let's get into the main topic, Matt. We're almost 14 minutes into the show, and we haven't even talked about.
Yeah, we better get going here.
What we're really here to talk about today. That's 96-97 Topps basketball. This is a set that's kind of near and dear to your heart. It's something that you really got after early on when we got back into this card thing during the pandemic. So I'm going to let you kind of lead the way, and I'll chime in as we go.
Yeah, as I've mentioned many times on the show, I'm a Colby guy. I like what he did to the NBA, and just the way he attacked basketball and getting better in his mentality, and then ultimately becoming a champion. Watching Michael Jordan grow up, and then have a guy come in and really try and study who Michael Jordan was, emulate him, and then really have the same amount of success too. When it comes to winning rings. Colby was a guy that I collected right when we got back into the hobby. And I was buying his cards raw. Oh my gosh, the prices I was getting on those cards looking back. I remember buying one for $35, $50, 55 bucks for a Kobe rookie Topps card from 96, 97. That was the card that I chased. And yeah, the set was really just a kind of a classic Topps look. And it had the white border. You had an action shot. It was, I would say, one of those cards that's just kind of vanilla. When you looked at the other cards that were happening in this era, you had like Ultra, you had Skybox, Stadium Club, Flare. They took up the whole card, so there wasn't a border. There wasn't that classic white border. So that's where this Topps was unique, and you got a really good glimpse right away whether your card was off center or centered, where it was. So you knew right away where this card was, and that's what I really liked about this set was the clean look. And the one thing I would say that was probably not great about this set was the name of the player at the bottom. You couldn't really read it. It kind of mixed in there, and so I would say that was probably one of the only issues with this card for me. But just a classic Topps look.
Yeah, it's about as basic as you can get, especially for that era, because it seemed like that era things were getting louder and louder, and people
Right.
were really kind of making crazy designs. And I remember that was kind of the first time we started seeing, Finest was around that time, and they were leaving the sticker on the card that, so it just seemed like every time you'd open a pack back then, it was like really kind of crazy colors, and everybody was getting into foil at that time. And this thing was really, really basic. And like you said, the other set at that time was that the one that I remember was Ultra, and Ultra didn't have any borders, and it had the kind of the cursive writing at the bottom, and you knew that it was Ultra when you opened the pack. I mean, it had that Ultra look to it. And then this was very basic, but like you said, with having that border on there, there's no doubt when you have an off-center card, you're going to see that, where you don't see that as much with the borderless cards, which probably affects the pop report a little bit, but I think it also makes it so that you kind of know going in what you've got going. These boxes with 36 packs in a box, 11 cards in a pack, so 396 cards in a box, and only 111 cards in each set.
Yeah.
So if you get a box, you're going to get 3 sets. If you're going on eBay right now and you see those Series 1 sets and you're like, man, they're only $500. Well, you're not going to find much in Series 1.
You're not. No, not in the first 111 cards, that's for sure. Yeah, it was definitely the tale of two series.
Yeah, you had all the rookies in Series 2, and the Jordan card was in Series 2. The card that I kind of popped up on the screen here right away at the beginning was a Series 1 card, and that's this guy here, the 70 wins for the Bulls.
Yeah.
That was a card you could get in Series 1, but
card number 72, because they had 72 wins that year, right? Is that what the right. And so the unique thing about the NBA at this time, and you have to understand the era too. So the NBA was the Bulls ran the NBA at this time. The NBA had just celebrated 50 years. So this was like, the NBA was definitely at its peak. And then this year, 96, 97, ushered in arguably one of the best rookie classes of all time. And so, at least of the modern era. And so I think what you were seeing here is a combination of a lot of positive publicity for the NBA. It was riding high from the Jordan era. And then you started getting these young guys in. But the unique thing about that rookie class was they weren't the rookie class. Like I look at the rookie class of Zion Williamson. Like that was, he reignited interest. Like the guy who became the icon of this class wasn't necessarily an icon right away. I'm talking about Colby.
Right.
but he was in the set. Now, when you look at the other rookies, I would say Allen Iverson was the number 1 overall pick. He was one of those guys that everybody looked at and said, okay, this guy is going to be a superstar. He's a superstar in college. And then there was another guy, turned out to be HOF, Steve Nash. He was in this too, but he wasn't one of those highly touted guys. Like, this guy's a can't miss. So you have those 3 guys. You have Stephon Marbury, who was also, you know, a much ballyhooed rookie. So you started to see these guys, you know, I would say later in their career become the icons they are. And so maybe in 96, 97, people were clamoring to get these guys, but it turned out to be just a truly iconic set because of all those guys, what they turned out to be.
Yeah, 11 total All-Stars picked in the first round. Actually, there's 10 in the first round. Then Ben Wallace. Three players from this draft will become MVPs: Nash, Colby, and Iverson. But like you said, Iverson was the number 1 pick. Marcus Camby out of UMass was number 2. He never became an All-Star, but was a pretty solid player in the NBA.
Yeah.
Sharif Abdur-Rahim was the 3rd pick. Marbury 4th. Ray Allen 5th. Antoine Walker. And then 7 to 12 were all guys that really never panned out. And then the 13th pick of the draft went to Charlotte. That was Kobe Bryant. And they ended up trading Vlade Divac for Kobe. And Vlade actually tried to blow that whole trade up at one point.
I remember that.
Said he was going to retire and then ended up accepting the trade and going to Charlotte. And actually, you know, you can't blame Vlade. He knew, you know, it was going to be good. And the Lakers were trying to move Vlade so they could bring Shaq in as well.
Right.
But I remember when that happened, I remember people going, why are they trading, you know, Vlade Divac, who's an all-star center, to get this kid who played basketball in Europe? You know, who is this kid? And it ended up obviously being a pretty good draft, a pretty good move there by the Lakers. But a lot of people don't realize that Kobe was the 13th pick of the draft.
Right. So and a lot of skepticism when he got drafted. Like, he was 6'5", 6'6", so he wasn't a big guy. As saying he was a 6'6" kid, because the year before you had Kevin Garnett, who was close to 7 feet coming to the NBA and could move like the wind. So, you know, they were like, yeah, this guy's, you know, a 7-footer, so he'll be just fine. But can this guard make that leap? And, you know, first couple of years, especially the first year for Kobe, was, you know, really tough. And he kind of, obviously, like a lot of young guys, you know, had to slowly figure it out. And he certainly did. But, you know, when you look at that class, like Allen Iverson was a dang good college player and then became a very good, you know, Hall of Fame career in the NBA. And then we mentioned Ray Allen, another really good player, Steve Nash. I mean, there's some really good names when you talk about this class. And so that's what makes this set so good. And, you know, when you start looking at kind of where these cards are as far as where, you know, who's grading what and who's grading the cards, Kobe is by far the most graded card out of this set, with like 28,000 cards graded, close to 3,600 or over 3,600 are 10s. So it's not a rare card. That's the other part of it. It's not a rare card. There's like a PSA 10 Kobe rookie is only going for $1,400. So, you know, this is one of those cards that you can always find, always available. Not many, there's many out there. Allen Iverson, the same one, 2,600 are 10s out of, 9,300 that were graded. Ray Allen is the third most graded at 2,300. He only has, 608 10s. Steve Nash is fourth, only 434 10s. So as the population, or as you go down that list, the population report goes down a little bit on these guys. And but there's guys on this list once you get to like Stephon Marbury, Jermaine O'Neal, Antoine Walker, Sharif Abdur-Rahim, didn't maybe have the greatest longevity, didn't have the careers that those other guys had, but at the time, they were really good players. And when you start looking at the other guys in this set, and this is one of the things that was interesting about this set when we talked their Series 1 and their Series 2, there's several guys that have 2 cards in the set. And one of those guys is Kevin Garnett. And the reason they did this, so there's Kevin Garnett, like Charles Barkley, John Stockton, Karl Malone, Joe Dumars, Grant Hill. They each had a card in Series 1 and Series 2. And the reason Topps did this was because there was uniform changes by their teams. So you had like Kevin Garnett in an old Wolves uniform. You had Charles Barkley in an old Suns uniform. And then they had a new uniform. And so they put them in new uniforms. So those are some interesting nuances that Topps added to this set. And the other one that, I think drove a lot of attention to this one was Shaq's card. He had a Shaq card in his first year with the Lakers. So they had this big, bright yellow Lakers jersey on Shaq, too. So I think that, there was some draws for those Hall of Famers that had been, established superstars that you were going to collect. And when you look at this set checklist, there are a lot of, they didn't waste any paper on average players.
Right.
These were all the best, like you were talking about. This is 111 in Series 1, same amount Series 2. And so they didn't really waste a lot of paper on those filler cards or, putting head coaches on cards. These were the players that people were paying to see. And that was cool to see. I love to see, you and I have talked about that when we're looking at buying boxes. How many sets are you going to get out of each box? And like you said, you're going to get 3 out of this. So I love when card companies do that. That's all. I'm for that.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities there to get it. Obviously, doesn't mean you're going to get 3, but you could get 4, you could get 2, you could get 1. But just having that opportunity with 400 cards in a box. The other guy that you didn't bring up his name, but David Robinson was on both boxes. And
he was.
That set kind of had like a find the David Robinson kind of thing, a little special David Robinson set in there. So he was part of the set, and Patrick Ewing, a lot of those Hall of Famer kind of guys in there as well. But I guess to get back a little bit on the stuff, Jordan, that Bulls team had won the championship 91, 92, 93. And then Jordan stepped away. And then that 95, 96 season, so those cards would have been printed out of that season, was Jordan's first full year back from the hiatus. He came back kind of at the end of the year. At the tail end of that 94-95 season, but that was his first full year back, and hence the 72 wins and the 72 win card. But what's kind of funny, and you still see it now, but really it seemed like that time, that era in the NBA, there was a ton of trades that happened during the draft that they didn't get consummated until after the draft. And Ray Allen, I think, was actually drafted by the Supersonics and ended up playing with the Bucks. And then, of course, probably his years where I think people really remember him is probably with the Heat and with the Celtics.
Right.
Is where he won his championships. But I guess my one story from this draft class would be, I believe it was in 2001, the Milwaukee Bucks and the 76ers were playing the Eastern Conference Finals. And I went down to that game, and we were driving back late at night after the game. And I don't remember what game it was. I don't even remember. I'm pretty sure the Bucks won. But I was driving back, and we hit a bear on the way home on the highway.
Oh, jeez.
That's my Allen Iverson, Ray Allen story.
There you go.
We hit a bear on the way home. So.
Oh man!
But you're talking about. You said the checklist of this set is only got 110 cards. That might be the most interesting thing about this set. Actually, is the checklist number 111 in Series 1 is a short print. It is extremely rare. It is actually the second most valuable card in the set as well. A raw one just sold for $65. The cheapest one I saw on eBay right now is $80 for a checklist. And I guess to kind of round that out, Colby Bryant rookie raw is selling for $100. Iversons are selling for $20. So you could get 3 Iversons for the price of one checklist.
Yeah, Jordan's, that was odd. I couldn't find any reason why Topps decided to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't in the set at all either. And then you were talking about pop charts or pop reports. It's only been graded 12 times.
Right.
So it's super rare, the checklist, which is.
But you're not going to get checklists graded normally, I mean, but
No,
when you find out that this is a short print, then obviously it becomes more interesting.
Yeah, they are selling for big bucks graded, especially at a high grade.
Yeah,
it's those guys that are building, master sets with graded cards.
So you're saying that wasn't in a set; it was just you had to find it in the wild. You had to find it in packs.
And the other thing that we should talk about too, and you had this, Matt puts together the photos that we're going to talk about every week, and you had that gold bar set in there, and that gold bar, it's not even in the gold bar set. Like, it's just, you can get it in packs, and that's it.
Right. Can you go back to that Rodman card real quick?
Yeah, let's go back to that.
Yeah, that was. I was looking at this and I was like, "That's Michael Jordan in that card too."
Yeah.
But this was an interesting year for Dennis Rodman because he was suspended this year for 11 games for kicking a cameraman in the groin because the cameraman tripped him during a game accidentally, and he was frustrated, so he kicked him in the groin. And interesting enough, your Bear story, I was at the game that he kicked the cameraman. And so I was in the way upper deck, so we had no idea what was happening. But all of a sudden, everybody was in everybody was in a lather, and Dennis obviously got ejected. We had to wait until we got home to watch the highlights. But yeah, it was an interesting year for old Dennis, but a cool card. It was one of those rare, horizontal cards. And, there he is grabbing a rebound like he always did. He's got the green hair and low pop on those, and I know there's a lot of people who collect Rodman cards. 26 10s, that's it on that card. But just an interesting year for Dennis and the Bulls. And, he was a big part of that Bulls run. So I think a lot of people were probably collecting this card too.
Yeah, I like the look on Jordan's face. Is like, oh my gosh, he's getting a rebound.
Yes, it's like, all right, Dennis is going to grab this one, and then we're going to break it out. But let's talk about the gold sets. So you brought that up, and this goes back to what we talked about at the beginning here. So when I was getting back into the hobby, I was like, I'm going to chase these Colby cards because I had a feeling. My gut was that the Colby cards were going to explode. And I can't remember, had he passed away yet? I can't remember if he had or not. He did. He had passed away. So he had, RIP, he had passed. I went online and I found a couple of these gold bar sets. When I found out that this was the factory set, I went out on eBay and I bought one. First of all, I think I paid $350 for it. So that was what I paid for it first time. And then I went and bought another one for $450 as they started to go up. I think they're selling for about $1,000 now. But here's what I found out about these. And this was kind of something that, again, I shouldn't have bought a second one. When you open these, the cards are in those cellophane packs like a hanger box today. So there's 3 stacks of those, and the cards were kind of allowed to kind of move around and get jostled a little bit. But the biggest issue that you had with this was the cards were stuck together because these Topps cards from 96, 97 had a little bit more gloss on them than other Topps cards, had in the past, where cards can just kind of, push off each other. I'm thinking of 80s baseball. This had a little bit of a gloss to it. So the cards, you actually had to peel them off from one another. And so, unfortunately, I opened these boxes before we had a YouTube channel, but I would have loved to have seen it. But that really, I think, affected the surface of the cards. So the corners and the edges kind of stayed intact because the cards were all stuck together. They weren't all loose moving around. But because you had to kind of peel them off, I think the surfaces of those cards were really impacted. In both my boxes, My Colbys, I think, were off center. The corners were great. The edges were great. I couldn't tell you what the surface was, but they were both off center. I think I got 8s or 9s on them. I can't remember. Definitely not a 10. But I do remember I send in Steve Nash, Allen Iverson, Michael Jordan, and I got 10s on some of those. So you can buy this brick and pull 10s out of them. That's the one thing I do remember, that I did get some 10s out of them. But just an interesting way to package a set. And it really was I think for the era back in 96, 97, a new way to package the sets. And, we had been so used to having, those, obviously the set boxes, but this was how basketball was packaged. And it was just an interesting way and to be honest with you, a frustrating way to open up a set and see how the cards were managed and categorized and collated. But just an interesting set to open. And like anything else though, when you opened it, you looked at it, like right there, you look at that Steve Nash card. That was a good way to look at it. You knew right away, okay, that's off center a little bit left to right. Like you can see the top's more white than the bottom, and you knew you were probably going to get a 9. You knew right away. You didn't have to inspect it. And that's what I like that about cards. Like, what you're going to get likely with the centering.
Yeah, these cards were interesting. And I think that era was a time where, manufacturers were putting a lot of gloss on cards. I've opened a ton of mid 1990s upper deck basketball sets, and there's so much bricking, and you're peeling the cards off, and the back of one ends up on the front of the other one, and you really got to kind of be careful. And I think if you're buying a set at a show or at a store or something, you can kind of take a look at it if it's a hand collated set. But when you're buying online, I think sometimes people are trying to hide things, and sometimes they're just not. They just haven't opened it. They just know that this is a 96 set, and they put it up there, and you get it, and there's bricking in there, and it's not obviously what you want. And hopefully,
it's definitely buyer beware, especially when you're talking about spending $1,000 to $1,500 on a set. You want to know what it's like, and that's the thing that's one of the things that I couldn't find was how do these cards, because the brick is only about that tall, so the cards aren't set, they're on their back, the cards are sitting here in that cellophane. So it's definitely buyer beware. And I think as the years go on, I think those cards are going to become harder and harder to separate from the cards on top of them. So I'd hate to see somebody spend $1,000, $1,500 and then not be able to peel the cards off, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there with nothing. And so hopefully, that's not the case. And, there's all kinds of tricks, that I've heard people do, take a hair dryer, put it in the freezer. I'm just like, this is just, I don't know. It's hard to avoid because it is such a great set. And I think a lot of people want those rookies out of there. And there's a lot of value. There's a lot of value. I think those, Steve Nash, Allen Iverson, those guys chase, there's a lot of people chasing those cards too. I know I've had those Steve Nash cards go real quick once I post them on eBay. So Iverson too. So I think there's a market for a lot of these guys still to this day. And, it's just it was a fun set to look at, because back in 96, I wasn't collecting basketball. So I wasn't buying these. So to be able to, get a set like this again was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's we're on this year. I actually found a 1996 Fleer Ultra basketball set 2 years ago at a flea market.
Yeah, he did.
I bought it for like $8. So, it's
I remember
it's one of those things that you never know where you might find this stuff. But kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, though, these boxes, a Series 1 box right now of wax sells for about $500.
Yeah.
But a Series 2 box is $2,000.
Yeah.
And that's where your value is. But like you said, you can get a PSA 10 Colby right now for $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. So if that's really what you want, in buying that box of wax. Yeah, you probably could get 3 Colbys in a box, but the odds of one of those being a 10 is pretty slim. And then you've got to go through the whole grading process. So if you're really looking for that Colby PSA 10, you might be better off just to go ahead and buy that slab and be done with it.
And I don't know if the packs, if I would, this is my assumption, if the sets are going to have that bricking, I wonder if the packs do as well. You know, that could be the case.
They probably do, based on a lot of the stuff from the mid-'90s I've opened, and it hasn't been that kind of valued stuff, but I've opened a lot of Stadium Club from that era, which was high gloss too, and it's all bricked. I mean, you really gotta.
I'm gonna go sell these, and we'll buy a box for $2,000. Do you think I have $2,000 worth of SGC cards in front of me?
You better go find some more.
All right, sounds good. I can put about $34 in there towards the $2,000 box. So no, it's for somebody else with more money and someone else with deeper pockets. But I just, it's not something I would chase. I think at this point, for sure, if you're searching for a Colby and you want a 10, go buy it. I don't think paying $2,000 unless you like to gamble a little bit like I do. But 2,000 is way too rich for my blood. And avoid Series 1. I think at this point, right?
Exactly. Series 2 is where the money's at, but I'm seeing packs sell online of Series 2 for like $50 for one pack. So not inexpensive stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for the set that we talk about this week. The old 96, 97 tops. Let's throw that one to bed and talk about something else.
I want to talk some eBay tonight, and I shared an article with you from Sports Collectors Daily about 6 card sellers among the top 15 eBay sellers across all categories globally. And this data was based on some total feedback scores received in March, and the report was put together by eBay Marketplace Pulse. Number 1 seller in the world was a music seller out of England, but the number 7 seller is ComC. Number 8 seller, DC Sports. Number 9 seller, Greg Morris Cards. You and I have bought quite a few raw cards from Greg Morris out of LA. Number 10 is Probstein. Number 11, Burbank Sports Cards is another California seller. But number 12, Two Bros Sports Cards, and they are right out of our neck of the woods, out of the Twin Cities area. And it's interesting that they are on that list because you and I talked tonight, and you said, "Have you ever been there?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been there." And you walk into the place. It's in a mall, like a real mall, and it's a beautiful store. Lots of jerseys and memorabilia type stuff there. But, I was there last summer, I guess was the last time I was there. There wasn't really but one showcase, maybe 2 showcases that had cards. There wasn't a ton of wax there at all. Really wasn't a ton of any cards there out. But obviously they're doing a huge business online. I think I saw they had something like, 12,000 feedback in March. So, I mean, that tells you that they're probably selling 30, 40,000 transactions, I would guess, because usually most people don't leave feedback on eBay. So they're doing a ton of business, and it kind of prompted me, you and I have a couple of shops that we frequent in the Twin Cities, and you go in there, and it doesn't look like a whole lot. Some of these shops are pretty small, but you start talking to them, and I also read there's a column on Sports Collectors Daily once a week done by Tony Reed, who owns a shop out east somewhere, and he talks about it often, just how much shipping they do. And I think a lot of these shops are just basically, they've got a shop open just to, provide leads to buy collections, to be able to fuel this online business. So I think a lot of people that go into these shops, they see what's up front, they talk to the people who are working there, and they kind of feel like that's the business. But really, I think the business for all of these shops now really goes on the other side of the wall that we don't see. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's interesting to you and I who've grown up, obviously face to face in the hobby. You had to go to a card shop or a show, And so to see that there's a super seller on eBay who has a store here in the Twin Cities that doesn't really sell cards, I found that interesting. That was an interesting conversation piece. And, I think they do, you and I talk, maybe they do breaks, maybe they do other things, but, to be a super seller, like you have to be selling a lot of inventory online, and, being organized and doing that obviously is your full-time job, which clearly they do. But it just shows, again, the hobby is thriving. The hobby is doing just fine. And I think we're in this for the long term. And another thing that I'm seeing too, when we talk about the hobby and where it's at, there was a card show in town here last weekend. I am seeing more and more kids at these events, at these card shows, with their little briefcases full of cards, looking to trade with, adults. They're having adult conversations, just like, you and I, when we go and negotiate for a car, or negotiate for, anything that we would, haggle with. And here they are. They're having great interactions with adults. Hey, what do you think of this? What will you give me for this? And they're not dumb. That's the thing. They're not being taken advantage of. They're like, yeah, there's only 3 of them. This is, it's sold for $500 on eBay. There's no comps. You listen to these conversations happening at the table, and I love it. I mean, I'm happy. And it makes you wonder, though, like, are they doing it for the money? Are they doing it for, the hustle? But at this point, I'm like, who cares? It's great interactions. It's great skills. For these young kids to be able to approach someone and have to think critically on their feet. Is this something that I want to do? Is this something I want to, approach? I like that card, but, am I going to get rejected? So I love where the hobby is. I think there's a lot of people out there that are looking to do this for money, and money only. And that's fine. I'm not going to knock that because, like I said, these cards I'm looking at, I mean, they have value. If you get in trouble financially, you want to be able to flip a card and make some money. But I just think there's a lot of cool things happening that maybe people don't see on a regular basis. But to me, that was one of the neat things that I saw, this past weekend, were those young kids with, trying to act like a little bit more like adults. And it was neat to see. And, some kids, man, I tell you, these 13, 14-year-old kids, man, they talk a good game. And I'm sitting there listening to them going, you should be in sales already, young man. You're selling it. So, and one of the things that you're not going to get past them, and I wanted to talk quickly about this too, is you're not going to get this past them either. This is the Mega Box of Playbook. And, this is kind of the new, one of the new boxes out there right now. Panini put this out. It's 4 packs. And if you go to our YouTube channel, Cardfellas YouTube channel, I did a box break with a mega and a hanger. And it was just I like to let people figure things out for themselves, but this was such a bad experience. I just did not have any joy breaking Playbook. And one of the things that got me, like, really, I don't want to say upset, but just like, why am I purchasing this? I got the one mem card. So you get a memorabilia card, it says, or you get an auto. I'm trying to get the glare off here. Sorry. You get, on average. And here was my memorabilia card. It was a Jalen Hurts jersey card, but it says on the back, the enclosed authentic memorabilia is not from any specific game or event. So take a look at that. Like, that could be anything. That could be my, the towel in my kitchen. So I don't know. I just, it's a little bit, I don't want to say it's false advertisement, but like, you expect to have a card that is maybe connected to the player somehow. I know they have autos in there as well, but just a really disappointing experience. And, those boxes are $40. I'm getting them on Target. But it's just a disappointing experience, and I get it. I get it that it's a double-edged sword here. I'm happy to have product. I'm happy to be able to rip. It's affordable, but here I am complaining about what I'm getting, and
Yeah.
it's just it didn't feel great leaving that experience. And it's not because I didn't get good cards, which I didn't. I mean, my rookies that I got and all the parallels were. And then the mem card, I mean, they were bad. It was a bad box. But the experience was like, okay, I'm going to go rip the next one and see what I get. I don't know. It's just an odd feeling, and I hadn't had that feeling in a while, ripping a new wax box.
Yeah, the worst thing about that card is it says right in the front of it, game day materials.
Right.
And on the back, it says, no, this wasn't used in a game.
Not a game day material. And so I brought this up to you, and I said, maybe this is a COVID thing. Maybe they just weren't able to get product or the memorabilia from the players, but I don't think it is. You and I both were like, this might be a Panini thing that they just can promote on their retail, and maybe that's just what they do. And boy, hook, line, and sinker, I bought it, and here I am. Went back and bought more. So jokes on me, Jack.
Yeah, they're in a spot that no matter what they make, people are going to buy it. But to me, when I saw that and I went, boy, it's you're getting 20 cards for $50 or whatever that mega box costs.
40.
And I said, that's maybe kind of like a hobby box sampler pack type of thing. I mean, you're not getting a lot of cards for your money there.
Yes.
So maybe they're going to throw in something a little bit nicer there, since you're not getting, 80 cards in a blaster box. It's 20 cards, but
it's very prominent auto mem card. Like that's what they're selling, right? That's it.
Yep.
That's what they're selling, because like you said, you're only getting 9 or 20 cards out of here.
Yep.
So you have to sell it somehow, and that's how they sold it. And then you open one, and it's congratulations, you got Jalen Hurts' grandma's underwear. It's like sweet.
I think the hanger box was like $15, and you actually get 30 cards in that.
Right.
So to me, that wouldn't be a surprise if you didn't get anything great. But when you're spending $40 on 20 cards, you would think that maybe that mem card would actually be a real actual game used thing. But you know what? We all bought Christmas sweater blasters from Donruss over the
That's
holidays.
true.
So there's not much difference in that. So.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think you have to. Again, I want to play devil's advocate, double-edged sword, whatever you like. At least we're getting opportunities to buy these. And you and I oftentimes text each other, "Hey, look what my Target has. Look what my this is like NBA hoops. All right, I'm just going to leave that there unless I want to rip a box that day. It's there. Here's NBA Donruss. Okay, great. Here's Series 1 baseball. It's available. It's there. Now I get it. Like the Mosaic football sells out right away. All that football, high-end football is still, I think, going to be in demand, right? I think that's the hottest thing on the market right now. But I think everybody knows right now that this playbook is not high-end, and that's why it's still available. But just is very disappointed in the product. And anytime we rip something, I like to share it with with you guys here, and just let you know. And like I said, on our YouTube channel, we do the quick rips where we show off what we get. In this box, it wasn't much. That's for sure. I should rip this box tonight. I think I'll do this. Nah, I'll hold on to it.
I actually I grabbed a few hangers, and I think I'm going to have my son do a video tomorrow doing a hanger of that. So,
I wish him well. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we can wrap this one up, put a bow on it. Next week, we're going to go back to baseball, and I think we're going to talk about 1978 tops, just because I like the design.
Absolutely.
It's kind of a cool design, and I like 1970s baseball. I've been watching a lot of documentaries on YouTube lately, and I watched one last night on Dave Stieb, which seems like an odd thing, but it was actually a 3-hour documentary on Dave Stieb.
Wow.
Exactly.
Former Toronto Blue Jay?
Former Toronto Blue Jay,
yeah,
but
sure.
Here's something interesting for you. He never pitched until basically his last year of college baseball. Went to Southern Illinois. He was a Saluki. He was an
Saluki,
outfielder.
yeah.
Really, really good outfielder. On one game, they were short pitchers, and they said, "We need one of you guys to pitch." And they kind of tested out all the position players, and he could throw. And here's another thing about Dave Stieb. He's one of the few players in basically the modern era of baseball that never played one inning in the minor leagues. Refused to play in the minor leagues, so they took him straight to the majors. And I think people don't, and that was kind of the whole idea behind the documentary, was that he played for the Blue Jays. They had just become a team, and they were horrible. But if you take the metrics and the numbers that we measure pitchers by today, if you take those numbers, he was one of the best pitchers in the major leagues. But at that time, they basically measured pitchers by wins and losses. And his wins and losses were horrible. But I think he had like 12 one-hitters in his career, and never threw a no-hitter basically until the end of his career. Yeah. In the season before he finally threw the no-hitter, he wrapped up the season with 2 straight one-hitters that he gave up the hit after having 26 outs. So it was insane that he took them right down to the last batter. And I believe actually those were 2 strikes on those guys too.
Wow. So you spent some time learning about Dave Stieb.
Well, like I said, I like to sort cards, and I just put that on while I'm doing my thing, and I can listen and watch while I'm going through stuff, and it gives me a lot of joy. Looks like Nolan Voigt.
Would this give you a lot of joy if you bought this from me?
You good?
All right.
Yeah, I don't need to buy that one. Nolan Voigt said he enjoyed it as well. So
that's great. Love the drop in by Nolan. Nolan, he commented on my SGC video as well. So love the interaction, love the engagement, man. I tell you, we're starting to grow a little bit. I love it. We're starting to get a following, and it's small but mighty.
Yep.
And we'll hopefully continue to get more, and hopefully you guys continue to enjoy this. Follow us on the YouTube channel. Obviously, subscribe. We're on the podcast platforms, wherever you get your podcasts. The Card Fellas Show. We're going to hopefully be adding some content coming in here pretty soon. So a lot of fun stuff happening. We love talking about it. And the good thing about the hobby is we're rarely going to have things to run out of. We're never going to run out of topics.
Right.
When we talk about these sets, think about all the sets that were made. It's going to take us a long time to run out of sets to talk about. So it should be fun to continue that conversation.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening, and we will talk to you next time.